Chapter 2. A New Mom. I experienced a lifetime of memories while living on Cook Street. Most of my chatter began with, "When I was 5, my oldest brother would tease me. Everything happened to you when you were 5. I suppose that's why I was so eager to write. The events in those first few years needed to be recorded. Not just the bug bite from a hose, but the neighbor who would squirt milk into our mouths as we watched him milk the cows. I needed to explain why it wasn't fair that I had my mouth washed out with soap for calling my brother Jim a butt. Plus, how interesting it was that the lady down the street kept her chickens in the house and would occasionally spray the floor and walls down with a hose. Scuffered black ants taste like burning hot pepper, and the best way to stop my bike was to run into a telephone pole. However, one thing I really wanted to write about was what happened on my birthday. I was so excited to have cake and ice cream. Except the ice cream wasn't ice cream at all. It was cheesecake. To my mother's horror, I spit it out. Yes, when I was 5, lots of things happened that I wanted to talk about. When I was 9, I didn't want to talk about anything that happened. We moved to La Crescenta and rented a house across the street from a teenager who told me he threw cats into the storm drains just for fun. He warned, "If you're not careful, I'll throw you in too." There was the night Stan and I watched Dad argue with a man who was pulling our car up onto a ramp with several other cars. We wondered why he was taking ours when he had plenty of his own. Occasionally there were evenings I was afraid to walk home in the dark, as a neighbor girl had told me scary stories that gave me nightmares. I would crawl into bed with Mom and Dad on those nights, crowding everyone out and leaving them just enough room to sleep on the edge. It was also the age I developed restless leg syndrome, RLS, crying many nights as the syndrome did not allow me to relax and fall asleep. Still, none of that compared to the dread I felt as I entered this new school. There were a lot of changes between 3rd and 4th grade. I was already behind academically, and having established friends seemed more important than ever before. The students wore clothes more fashionable than we could afford, and many times Dad cut my hair when he cut the boys. I felt out of place immediately. I had one friend, Gail Thompson. She latched onto me like glue because she didn't seem to have any friends either. Not that I minded. I was glad to have someone to eat lunch with. She was the first friend I ever spent the night with. Her family was nothing like mine. Where my father would get angry and yell, Gail's family was incredibly sweet to one another. There were no raised voices or angry words. Everyone was soft-spoken and polite. Even at age 9, their actions didn't seem normal. They were sweet to the point of being obnoxious. Speaking just above a whisper, Gail's mother would warn all of us to be tolerant, thoughtful, and kind. All eyes would glance toward Gary, Gail's twin brother. She told me he had issues we weren't allowed to talk about. Although her mother encouraged us to be considerate, there were telltale signs of disturbing behavior. Holes in the walls, broken windows, and locks on all the doors, including the kitchen cupboards. Gail confessed her father lost his kitchen privileges when he tried to poison her mother. It frightened me a little, so I made sure we kept her bedroom door locked when I stayed over. I tried to witness to her, although I wasn't even a Christian myself at the time. She rejected the entire idea of there being a God. Dad was always self-employed, working as a mechanic when I was very young and a salesman for the rest of his life. Mom worked at the county as an office clerk, so neither was home during the day. Hating school as I did, I found it easy to fabricate a stomachache, stay home, lay on the couch, and watch TV. As far as I knew, no one ever checked up on me, so apparently I wasn't missed. I was living a homeschooler's dream without doing the homework. When it came time for my report card, I was shocked. What? I have to repeat 4th grade? I hated it the first time. Since we moved every year, I was certain I would skip 4th and start 5th grade in a new town. That didn't happen, as circumstances didn't follow our normal pattern, and I was forced to watch my class move on without me. My mother had a delicate constitution. She was soft-spoken and kind. There wasn't a day that went by when she didn't show me love and affection. Every evening she would sit at my bedside. We'd talk, have devotions, and pray before she kissed me good night. My father was also kind to Stan and me, but had a temper with the oldest children. I hated the way he treated them, as well as how he treated my mother. She avoided confrontation at all costs, and cowered at my father's outbursts when he bullied her. I never witnessed him physically assault her, but the mental abuse was frequent. Her inability to protect her oldest children from his violent anger, incessant moving, overdue bills, and threatening phone calls from creditors wore on her mental state. She had been hospitalized on several occasions for nervous breakdowns prior to my birth. I even witnessed it once in 1958. I was 7 when I woke up in the middle of the night to my mother screaming. She was saying my father was trying to poison her. She had broken the bathroom window and was trying to climb out. When the police arrived, I expected they would arrest my father. Instead, they restrained my mother and took her away. I was frightened as Dad put me in his car, where I quietly hugged the door handle. I had no idea where we were going, where Stan was, or what was going on. Dad dropped me off at a friend's home in the country. The next day was February 14th, Valentine's Day. I attended class with their daughter. I felt self-conscious and sad as the Valentine cards were being passed out. With head bent down, I glanced at those near me. They were getting hearts tucked in flowery envelopes and Valentine candy. Giggles of delight and laughter filled the room as I sat quietly. I wanted to be invisible. I was hoping no one would notice how uncomfortable I felt. Then suddenly a card fell on my desk with my name on it. Then 2, 3, and a dozen or more were placed in front of me. They all bore my name. I was overwhelmed with joy. Someone made sure I hadn't been left out. I couldn't tell you who the family was or how long I stayed there, but I will never forget those Valentine cards. I was 10 years old, repeating 4th grade in La Crescenta, when Mom had another nervous breakdown. This time we were home alone. She woke me from a sound sleep and frantically pulled me into her bedroom, where she locked the door and barricaded us in. She was hysterical and kept asking if I knew where Stan was. Pacing back and forth, she warned me there were people on the other side of the door waiting to take me away, just as they had done with Stan. I didn't know what people she was talking about. As far as I knew, Stan had gone off with Dad and had been gone for a while. Occasionally, she would call out, "Vivian! Why doesn't Vivian call?" I didn't know who Vivian was, but I was praying she would call as well. I don't know how long we were locked in the room, but it seemed like hours. I was beginning to feel weak and hungry. Mom had always been a wonderful cook. She could pull a delicious meal together out of thin air. I thought, if I told her I needed to eat something, she would let us out. "Mom," I whined, "I'm hungry. I'm feeling sick." Instead of showing me her usual tender care, she unlocked the door, grabbed my arm, and pulled me into the bathroom. Forcing my head into the toilet, she began yelling, "Throw up then! Throw up!" Instinctively, I threw my forearms onto the seat and braced myself. I was able to keep my head from being pushed into the toilet water. I sobbed, "Mom, Mom!" Just then the phone in the hallway rang. "Vivian!" Mom screamed and released me. I have no idea if it was Vivian or not, but within minutes, help had arrived to rescue me. Once again, Mom was hospitalized and diagnosed with another nervous breakdown, but this time she was given shock treatments. Electroconvulsive therapy. Jim, my older brother, was traumatized as he could hear her screaming when they took her down the hospital hallway for a treatments that were relatively unfettered and unregulated at the time. The effect it had on my mother was dramatic. I was so happy when she returned home. I hugged her, but there was no motherly response, just a rigid body. Her facial expression was stoic. The sparkle in her eyes had been replaced by an empty gaze. She appeared to be robotic. Our nightly routine of devotions, kisses, and prayers was gone. I laid in bed at night crying. I just wanted my mom back, the sweet, tender one who loved me. It wasn't long before my father returned to town. Instead of coming to the house, he called me from a payphone at the local grocery store. He said he had a surprise for me and to come as quickly as possible. My heart raced as I ran up the hill, each step pounding the ground as hard as I could in anticipation of seeing Stan. The surprise wasn't nearly as exciting as seeing my brother. I could hardly wait to tell him everything that had happened while he was away. The car was parked next to the phone booth. Dad's elbow hung out the driver's window. Leaning in on his arm, I jabbered incessantly, stopping only long enough to catch my breath. However, something wasn't right. Stan was sitting in the back seat. Dad had his arm around a strange woman who bent forward and smiled at me. Panic welled up. Now it all made sense. Dad wasn't returning home. He was there to take me away. Mom was right. There were people waiting to take me away. My dad. This was to be my new mom. I was sure of it. Before Dad could say a word, I began shaking my head and pushed myself away. I wasn't going anywhere with any of them. Tears clouded my vision and confusion muddled my mind. I stumbled several times as I ran back down the hill. No one must know about this. No one, especially Mom. I was upset and suspicious when Dad returned a few days later, but was relieved it was just him and Stan. It wasn't until after Mom passed away that I heard the whole story. I was sent off to my grandparents while Dad packed up the house and moved us to Burbank. I was told Mom dutifully complied with no arguments or resistance. Jim refused to move with them as he was still in high school, so they left him behind just as they had done with Carol Jean years earlier.